Hello. So I want to discuss the do's and don'ts of becoming a housing navigator. The do's and the don'ts on how to get there and sustaining it. So when you're looking for housing navigation jobs, it is very good to go to your local social services agency and see if they have a listserv. Typically on that listserv, if it comes to resources in your local community, it's where you can be placed onto an email of a network where jobs are released before they are released to the public. And sometimes that comes out internally. The number one way to look for a job in social services is to go onto your county's website, go to where contracts have been rewarded under social services or health services in the community, and see who has won and see who has applied. You get a couple of things. You get to see what funding is coming down so you know what to specifically ask for and talk about in your interview. You get direct contact names of the program manager who would be on the sounding board of your interview process. You will see how much money it is so you can kind of guesstimate the allocation of salaries. And then you will kind of know what they are doing as an organization. And if they won, they more than likely have a pretty strong accounting framework. That's the number one way to look for a job. Don't go, you can go to Craigslist, but that's kind of ghetto. And it's ghetto because more than likely there is some type of supervisor that's not in tune with what's going on today with how to look for a job. And then you can go on to I'm going to say Stanford because I'm in the Bay Area, but you can go to your local public hospital or county hospital and look in their research and development department and to see what type of clinical trials they have going on. When you look at their clinical trials, you can see if housing navigation is on there. Number one person who's heavily involved in housing is Kaiser here in the Bay Area because homelessness is so significant. So if you're in a very urban area, you are more than welcomed to go onto those websites and to look in those areas to find you your first job. So that's looking for the job. Let's go to number two of getting the job, the interview process. So housing navigators are sometimes temporary. They're temporarily placed on whatever type of funding cycle or funding stream that has been allocated to the organization that won the grant. So it can be a temporary job that could last you from 6 months to 2 years. Now, they're going to ask you a couple of things. The primary is going to be outreach. How are you able to engage? They have this illusion that housing navigation is back in the day in the 80s where you have to go outside and look in the tents and look for people like we did in the early 2000s. But you don't have to do that actually. You can go online to Facebook. You can put in whatever resources are connected to homelessness, put that in. You can focus on where there will be a group of homeless individuals congregating for resources. That's something you can bring up in your interview because that may more than likely is something that the organization has not done. And a lot of social services agencies are behind in using data-driven geo maps to find individuals that will benefit from their programs. So then they're going to ask you, well, how do you feel about putting someone homeless in your car? I feel fine. That's why I have insurance. And most of the time, if you're working with a mid-level or a large organization, they have cars you can drive around, but just say it's okay. But more than likely, you're not going to have to because that homeless person is not going to, that person experiencing homelessness is not going to trust you. They don't know you like that. And then probably a third and final would be is how do you engage? I would say the best engagement is working from self. Just be yourself. My experience for working with the homeless and working with individuals from low income that have been on the streets or experienced any type of life outside of the status quo of American systematic stuff, they are the best readers of people. They have an intuition that has kept them alive on the streets for a reason. They know how to read you. So it's better for you to be as authentic as possible when you are engaging with them to see if they want to get services. They more than likely have not gotten services. If it's not mental health, it's because they've been burned by the system. So you want to build that trust and say that if I say I'm going to house you, I'm going to house you, and I'm going to follow through on the documentation. I'm going to follow through making it happen as fast as possible. So we have gone 1, looking for the job. 2, going through the interview process. Now, number 3, your first 90 days, you're going to be scared. You're going to see some shit. You're going to see some things. It's like, people are really living like this. And yes, people are really living like this, and they're surviving like that as well. So you want to take the time to get to know your team, get to know how you fit in. And then you also want to find the number 1 person that houses individuals. That's not all arrogant, that's not all egotistical, but just someone that loves what they do. Find that person and mentor with them. If they don't want to be a mentor, then you pay attention to them. Pay attention to how they engage. Pay attention to how they keep their caseload down. Pay attention to how they follow through. Pay attention to how they are able to connect with resources and find resources, because that is the staying power of the game. Or resources. There are so many resources. Here in the Bay Area, it is the land of milk and honey. That's why homelessness is so high, because of the benefits that they do receive, and that's keeping it real funky fresh. But, they are not advertised well. And because they're not advertised well, they're mostly or internally mouth to mouth. There are a lot of people and organizations that cannot connect to each other. You want to know and gain access to as many resources as possible that's going to benefit you, 1, in making your role easier, but then making the transition from homelessness to housed for your client easier. So, as a social services maven, I've always said you all are needed. I kind of fell off. I was busy, but we are here now. This pandemic, you're about to see a wave of homelessness that we've never seen before. And we need people like you to be hired and in these roles to get individuals housed and to keep them housed. So as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.